farm, how we do it, why we do it, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things. We'll geek out a little bit, but also keep it pretty surface level as far as, you know, I won't bore you with information. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want along the way. We're going to kind of be going off the beaten path. So we'll be getting into some tall grasses. We'll be getting into some blocks in the vineyard. And yeah, we'll do some hands-on things along the way as well. So I'm really excited. I think we have 2 more coming. So we'll.
We should look up some smart questions to ask.
Well, you know what? Hopefully we stimulate some questions along the way. That would be great. But also, you know, just feel free to relax too. This is Casey. He is my coworker. He's going to be live streaming this today so we can reach our fans near and far. People that are, you know, a little more distant, that they can still get the information and get all the good stuff. So he'll be following us along. Hi, everyone. And just feel free to either ignore him or talk to him. He's a nice guy. So let's just get into what regenerative agriculture is. Yeah. Absolutely. Could we turn that down for a minute? Thank you. So we're going to be talking about what regenerative organic agriculture is, what its applications are for viticulture, and kind of why we do it here at Bundschu Company. So I'll start off with that, the why behind it all. Bundschu Company has been around since 1858. So we're on the very land that kind of started the whole thing. We've been farming this property since 1858. And of course, through all of those, that timeline, we've had some interesting things along the way as far as prohibition. We had phylloxera. We've had wildfires and COVID. And here we still remain. So it was kind of an inherent direction for the family to really take the property as far as taking care of it in a way that works with nature rather than against it. It's all about, you know, preserving this land for future generations. We have the 7th generation on the heels of our 6th generation owner right now. And it's really all about our community. We love having people, dogs, walking the vineyard every day. It's really open to the public as far as that goes. And being confident to know that there's nothing on this property that's going to hurt you in any way whatsoever, which is very exciting. Oh, here is my sister-in-law that's late to the party.
Mother-in-law's right behind.
Okay, great. So Louise this is my sister-in-law. She actually was an intern for me not too long ago. Sorry to put you on the spot, Louise. You kind of missed the introduction, but that's okay. So we will. So we're gonna do a couple stops along the way, and halfway through we'll have a little surprise and delight, and it should be really fun. So, Freya, are you ready? You ready? Awesome. Yeah, the restrooms. Anyone that wants to use the restrooms before we go, right around the corner to the left there. Feel free. Hi. That's okay. Oh, yeah. That'll happen. This is Casey's live streaming our. So any questions before we get going to kind of set us off? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, let's get into that. So regenerative organic certification, we got regenerative organic certified in 2023. So, but what started that, we started our transition in 2019. The kind of baseline for regenerative organic is becoming organic certified. So to become organic certified, you have a 3-year kind of gap period where you're weaning off any sort of synthetic materials that you once used for your land. So in 2019, we cut off any synthetic inputs that are not listed on the USDA National Organic Program. And so in those 3 years, we were working to implement all sorts of different organic practices from, you know, trying to understand what we can use in-house to build our soil health. So we started with all kinds of different cover cropping. We started introducing animals to our land. We started really focusing on biodiversity in the form of different plants and animals, insects, and what kind of integrated pest management we could use to build our land, things that, you know, really aren't outsourced. And so in 2022, we became CCOF organic certified. And then the following year in 2023, we were regenerative organic certified. We became the 11th winery in the U.S. Yes, yeah. And so it's an international program, and it's fairly new, I would say, to viticulture, and it certainly has started to become more of a buzzword in the industry, but it's really about how you do it in action, what your practices are, and so we'll be able to really get into those today.
So who is the organization or the standard that's actually certifying or giving the certification?
Great question. Thank you. So the certifying body, or the starter of regenerative organic certification, is the Regenerative Organic Alliance. And so they were founded kind of with the Savory Institute, which is Alan Savory. Are you familiar? Nice. Okay. And so they're a nonprofit organization, and they outsource their certifying bodies. So CCOF actually does our audits for them, and they're trying to, you know, build more auditors as the program becomes a bit more popular, which is great, because the more the merrier. The more people that are practicing regenerative agriculture, the more impact we're making for the climate. And really, regenerative agriculture is all about recognizing the human degradation we've had, the anthropogenic climate influences we've had on the planet, as far as how we've degraded our soils and the synthetic inputs that we've used, how we can reverse that, and how we can work positively with the climate to farm for a better future. So with that said, let's get going. So we're going to go up onto Tolls Hill first. And then we'll do a nice overview of the property. So up on this whole hillside here, we call it Tolls Hill. It is all natural land. We actually have more native land than we do planted acreage here. So that is a huge factor for wildlife habitat, which also allows tons of beneficial insects. It's about carbon sequestration and building as much carbon in your land as possible. And all of these, you know, pretty much ancient trees, they all have deep root systems along with our perennial vines that are sequestering carbon, holding it into the soil, and kind of offsetting any sort of additional emissions that we may have in the vineyard. Everyone watch your step. So this is our stormwater pond here. The vineyard, all of the vineyard is irrigated out of this. It's reclaiming all of our stormwater runoff. And it also acts as kind of, so we'll look at it at the bottom of the property, but 100% of our winery wastewater is recycled and able to be reused for irrigation. That's one of our sustainability practices that was enacted very early in any sort of like sustainability efforts. So it was really forward thinking when the Bundschu family kind of installed this massive stormwater pond in our wastewater system. There's tons of wildlife on the property. So as we kind of navigate through everything, just keep your eyes and ears peeled, because there's all kinds of good stuff, and we'll talk about that a little more once we get stopped and I'm not like out of breath and huffing and puffing. My favorite time on the ranch every morning too is before everyone really gets here. And if you're quiet, you can hear all of the different insects, all of the birds. It is so alive with wildlife. Here, we'll go this way. Oh, so this is a nice little wedding or event area. So, little plug. If you have any events coming up, hit us up. So this is my favorite time of year here on Rhine Farm. We are in the midst of spring, and with that we have tons of wildlife. We have in our stormwater pond, we have an amazing amount of aquatic turtles. We have ducks, geese. One time when the seasonal flows, we have tons of creeks throughout the property. One year there was actually beavers that ended up in this pond. So, you know, the amount of wildlife from the water is incredible. And then as you kind of pivot out into the vineyard, you have a family of vultures down here. So that means something is around. We have all kinds of bird boxes on the property that provide an amazing amount of habitat for bluebirds and tree sparrows. They definitely compete for them. And in the mornings, you'll just see swarms of birds throughout the property. We have all kinds of hawks. We have barn owls. And as far as four-leggeds, we have a resident coyote that has been around. We might see him this morning, actually, because yesterday morning he was out in a block that we're going to be passing, just kind of walking around, and he's been sunbathing on Bundschu Lane. I don't really know why he thinks this is his stomping ground now, but I'm not against it. We have deer, which are more of not so much of a beneficial pest. They definitely challenge us as far as protecting our vines. And other four-leggeds, we have, here's a funny story. So we have mountain lions out here. And it was like my second week here working for Bundschu Company. It was back in 2020. And I was out in our La Paz vineyard, which is over yonder, up on our highest elevation, checking the irrigation lines on an ATV. And it was my first time being out there by myself without assistance. You know, they set me loose. And I'm coming down a row of the vineyard, and I see this massive mountain lion having breakfast on a baby fawn. And the ATV was a little old, and I freak out, and I try to throw it in reverse, and I'm like trying to reverse. I like run into a vine, definitely knocked it over. And then so I get out of the vineyard row, and I come back around, and the mountain lion had the fawn in its mouth and was jumping over the deer fence up into the mountains. So they are very much around. We actually had a sighting a few weeks ago too over near some of our offices. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled. Some other not so beneficial pests that we have are ground squirrels. They're plentiful. Those, along with deer, are, as far as vertebrate pests goes, are definitely our most challenging when it comes to, you know, keeping them away from the vines. They can cause a lot of damage, and the ground squirrels, a lot of damage in the root systems. But we have an amazing amount of habitat here for them, so they're always present every year. We have an amazing amount of jackrabbits. We'll definitely see those as we carry on today. Other amazing parts about Rhine Farm during springtime is our seasonal creek flows. I kind of mentioned that before. We had a really wet and wonderful winter this year. Our stormwater pond here, it overflows and it travels down all through the property. Along here we have Heresy Creek, which we'll get more familiar with down our tour. And everything connects into Sonoma Creek, so that's our watershed. With that comes a lot of different practices when it comes to regenerative agriculture and protecting our waterways. What else can I talk about with spring? It's the best. Oh my gosh, of course, it's the renewal of the vines. They've woken up. We recently exited bud break, and now we're across most of Rhine Farm. We're in about the third stage of growth, which is when there's 2 to 4 leaves present on the vines. So it's an exciting time, and this is definitely when things really start to gear up as far as labor and getting in the vineyard. It's super exciting. We'll start working on our integrated pest management. We'll start lots of scouting for pests as well as for powdery mildew. We have a lot of really cool technologies for that we'll discuss along the way too. Yeah.
A couple questions. Is the regenerative certification a whole farm certification, or can you have blocks that are, just regular organic and blocks that are regenerative?
Great question. Yeah, so you can split your parcel if that's the way you want to farm. So some vineyards that have the certification don't have a specific block certified because for whatever reason, say they have, really what it comes down to too is labor. If it requires a ton of different types of interventions, maybe they won't go after the regenerative certification for that. But with that said, you have to be organic certified, especially within a certain amount of distance. So you can't have a conventional block next to a regenerative organic block. And when I say conventional, that is really when we're talking about farming, that is, the glyphosate, the people that are, using different type of sprays to herbicides, pesticides, insecticides. Those are the vineyards where you look at them and there's absolutely nothing under the vine but dirt. Probably not farming organic. So as you can see here, everything is very alive. We will start to, as you can look down there, we will start to cut back our brush. And we'll start getting into under the vine management because the larger your cover crop grows, it becomes like basically a highway for pests. And it also introduces other issues such as competition for the vines to really thrive and grow their canopies, along with some other things. So we're going to start. Yeah, of course.
How do you manage your cover crop today?
So with our cover crop, we actually have a few different types of things that we do and also things that we're currently testing. So you can go just as far as mowing. That's great. Down there you can kind of see a little bit of exposed soil, but really what that is down there is we chopped it. So it's a really close mow essentially. And then all of the clippings are still mulching the ground. You can also get into tillage. You can, those are really the two options with regenerative organic. So you're either tilling it, you're chopping it, you're mowing it. And our recent testing that we've been doing is crimping. And this is kind of a newer approach that regenerative organic agriculture is using. And it is simply, you're bringing it's actually 2,500 pounds, and you're rolling it over your cover crop and it's laying it down. Then it insulates the ground as far as keeping it cool. It holds moisture in, it increases your water infiltration, and it protects your soil. So anytime you're exposing your soil, the carbon, as far as tilling, the carbon that you have stored, the nutrients that you have stored, and any type of microbes, fungi, any living things in your soil, they're dying because you immediately expose them to the sun. They no longer have that habitat to live in. So we're closely, we're very intimately doing some no-till trials to understand how moving completely away from tilling will affect our vines specifically. Every vineyard is so different as far as your terroir, as far as your water table, water availability, your type of soil, how much sun you're getting, the wind, everything. So it's really hard to just go full bore, no-till, and kind of risk your entire crop, So it's a really risky way to approach that. So we're trying to do it with as much data and science and understanding as we possibly can. That's a lovely lady that drives through our vineyard every day. Great question. Yes, there absolutely is. So there's different levels of the regenerative organic certification. There's bronze, silver, and gold. If you're farming at the gold level, you are 100% no-till, no questions asked. If you're silver level, you have at least 50% ground cover year-round. This year, we are going for that here on Rhine Farm. Our other property, Abbot's Passage, we are silver level. This year, we also did maintain at least 50% cover, and we were doing that with every other row tillage. So yeah, there's certainly restrictions for tilling. And then for the bronze level, you also can't go below 25%. So you have to be actively working on and improving your tillage action plan. And we'll talk about that more. So with the rock certification, these are our solar panels. They're safe, but yeah, maybe don't touch them. So with the rock certification, you also have a regenerative organic system plan. And with that, it's your ongoing efforts of how you're applying different regenerative practices. We have many, many things that we're doing as far as animal integration, water conservation, beneficial insects, different sustainable technologies, and we'll talk about that and all of this. Wildlife habitat. There's a jackrabbit. And so this regenerative organic system plan really holds you accountable. And it also includes a no-till action plan. So anytime that you do till up your land, you're explaining why, you're explaining how you can avoid it in the future, and you're really working on trying to get away from it as much as possible. And we're closely audited every year. So every year we have a full-blown audit, and every year you're continuously trying to improve on that. Good question. Yeah, and we'll talk about EOV too. So our auditor is CCOF. So they go through a training with Regenerative Organic Alliance, and they're able to do the auditing for the rock certification.
Does it increase your cost to do it this way?
Great question. So that's one of our KPIs really, is like one of being able to utilize a price premium, because it is more expensive. You know, you're looking at increased labor because you can't have those quick and easy fixes with any sort of spray. But we're still trying to fully understand really what the increased cost looks like, because the more and more you do regenerative agriculture, the more resilient your land becomes. And so the less intervention that you should eventually have. But right now, yeah, it is more expensive for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
No-till means different things depending on who you ask. Are you allowed to do anything to incorporate your cover crop after you terminate it?
Yes, yeah. So especially in viticulture, it's really no-till is still kind of like really not big or kind of accepted for a lot of growers. So you are allowed to do incorporation if, say, your vines aren't coming to full full ripening. So, or if your canopy is lagging behind, or if you can really see issues from competition, then you can justify your need to be able to incorporate it into your soil. But with that said, really what regenerative agriculture is all about is soil health. Yeah. And the second that you incorporate your cover crop into your soil, you are exposing all of that life underground. You're tearing up all the roots that are really able to cycle nutrients, that are increasing your water infiltration, water holding capacity. And it's really, there's a lot of new studies too that are really kind of coming to light and helping people really understand that maybe that's not the best way to go. And maybe they're really not competing. Maybe these community networks underground are actually, at the end of the day, they're going to take some time to adjust, but they're working together to share the nutrients and share the water. Maybe you won't have as robust of a crop, but the quality, maybe it's going to be a lot better. So that's really what we're looking at. And like the beauty of regenerative certification is it leaves room for you to slowly get into it and always look to improve. And that's really what we're focused on, is always improving, always learning, and really understanding our specific landscape. And so right here, this is a Pinot Noir block. We can kind of walk through. This was just chopped yesterday, actually. So you can see we still have roots in the ground. We still have all of the cover here. So all the roots are still in the ground, and then it also creates a beautiful mulch on top of it. So not only are we still maintaining that extra, those roots that are sequestering carbon, cycling nutrients, keeping the water in, but then this nice little mulch on top, it's also protecting it even more. It's keeping it cool. A big thing, and as you know, the growing season goes on, it gets hotter and hotter. The soil gets so hot. The difference in temperature between an exposed soil and the roots in the ground, it can be, it's significant. And we'll come out here and test it, and it'll be like 120 degrees right here, and then a block over there that maybe isn't, has no exposed soil, it'll be significantly cooler. That's great for the grapes and for the people. You know, that heat is reflecting off, and that can cause more grape shrivel otherwise. So let's come on down. So our cover crops this year, we had a great, it's called OSB plowdown. We have some clover, you can see fava beans, we have rye, we have barley. What else did we have in there? We have some common vetch. We have bluebell peas, winter peas, the kind of like twisty little edges over there. And then also we always have some native ground cover that comes up with it as well. The clover is always, I really like the clover. We always have some mustard, great nitrogen fixing, soil building, a little bit more deep tap rooted as far as the barley and rye goes. Yeah, so we use a seeder, and it kind of fluffs the soil up a little bit and plants the seeds in, and we do about 50 pounds per acre.
I have a question. Is mustard natural or native?
Mustard is actually not native. It's not a native species, but it is a great nitrogen fixer. So if you see a vineyard full of mustard, it's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's fixing nitrogen and it's beautiful, but it is not a native species. So again, so we are in about 2 to 4 leaf, as you can see. So we have about 2 to 4 leaves growing. After bud break, the little buds that come out, here we still have just a bud right here. That's not really supposed to be there. This is what turns into your leaves and your canes and the grapes. And so it's really fascinating when you just see a few buds on the vines that'll eventually become the giant canopies that you drive through, and everything is so beautiful and green. Just all starts from one little bud. And with that comes frost protection. So we have our wind machines all throughout the property, and they're slightly angled at like a 7% angle. You can't even tell, but it sucks down cooler air and mixes it, or it sucks down warmer air and mixes it with the cooler air on the ground. And it'll just change the degree temperature, or the degree by like 2, and it protects our vines from frost damage. So the second, we have bud break, our senses are on high alert for frost days because it can wipe out your entire crop. And that is really another aspect. The Farmer's Almanac, we used to be able to really rely on that. And as, climate change has come about, it's not so reliable anymore. We've had earlier or later frost days. We have more droughts. We have heavier rainfalls at, not as normal times. We have hotter days, cooler nights, and those are all part of climate change. And it's all about making your vineyard as resilient as possible and as self-sufficient as possible to be able to protect from all of those unpredictable events. So with that said, what else did we have to talk about here? So back to our regenerative organic system plan. So I talked about kind of, we have our no tillage or our till action plan. So anytime that we are doing any sort of tapping into the soil whatsoever, it's documented and we're understanding how we can improve on that. That also comes with our cover crops. That's part of building our soil health. And for our regenerative organic system plan, we're also looking at different KPIs each year. So we're trying to understand how big our crop is and in relation to what we did. We're looking at the number of vines that we have big pest issues with. And so we're kind of measuring each year what kind of went wrong, what went right, and kind of matching it up to what our ideal goal is. And so that, do we have a straggler? Hi there. Welcome. Hello. Are you coming to join us? Okay, great. Come one, come all. I love it. The more the merrier. Hi, what's your name? Hi, Mark. I'm Megan. We were just talking about soil health and tilling and understanding what's going on right here where we are in our growth stage. So we're about 2 to 4 leaves right now all throughout Rhine Farm in our growth stage of the vines. And we're just... No, so all of these vines that you're seeing right here have been around, I think these were all planted in 07, I want to say. I think that's right. So nothing here is newly planted. Everything here is fully harvested each year. After you have a new plant, you have to go at least 3 seasons until you can harvest it. Oh, and as far as the growth stage goes. Yeah, so we have about 2 to 4 leaves throughout the entire vineyard right now. So right here, if we're looking at our growth, we got like 2, 3 leaves here. Looking at 4 here. So yeah, we're heading into the growth of the season. And those we'll pass one later on. It's our heritage Pinot Noir block, but our Gewürztraminer block is the oldest over on the other side of the property. It was planted in 97. 1997. Yeah.
On the other side of the spectrum, but the vineyard's been around since 1858.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Have you planted any new blocks since you've been regenerative certified?
Not since we've been regenerative certified. Yeah, that's we are starting to look at that, which will be really exciting to kind of see that through the beginning and all the way to fruition. So we do have a lot of land that we have available to be planted. The state of the industry is kind of making that slightly challenging, but we're really excited at the possibilities, and we can plan for that. So we have some and we'll go into a block here that is currently being prepared for the potential of replanting and what all of that means to be able to get that soil and everything ready for the potential of that. Yes.
What level of regenerative are you certified at?
Sorry?
What level of regenerative?
So this property here, we're bronze, and then our Abbot's Passage, it's our Rancho Agua Caliente vineyard, we're certified silver. This year we have every intention on achieving silver here, as far as really our biggest challenge so far in the whole process has been transitioning to no-till. We're very much reduced till, and we'll be heading into at least 50% of year-round ground cover on the property here this season. There's bronze, silver, and gold. So there's 3 levels of the certification there. And the 3 pillars are soil health, animal welfare, and farm worker fairness. No, just the gold is the highest standard. That would sound cool. That's for sure. So yeah, these are some Pinot Noir blocks. We'll start heading this way. Any more questions before we head on? So that's a great question. Understanding what cover crops you need is all about leaf patial testing and soil health monitoring. And so every year we do ecological outcome verification monitoring. And so EOV, we look at above ground and below ground indicators. So every year I come through here and we're looking at the amount of different species that's covered on the top of the ground, different types of wildlife we have living here, different types of above ground insects. And then below ground, we're looking at this is where we get into the lab. And so we're doing all kinds of different soil health testing as far as our nutrient levels, the amount of carbon you're holding, the amount of organic matter. And from there, you can really understand what type of soil what type of deficiencies you have in your soil. And with that, in conjunction with leaf petiole testing, you, during a certain time of the growth stage of the vines, we are collecting a full, I wish it was a little more developed right now, but you take a full leaf, the petiole, which is like the stem, and then the leaf, and you collect really like a composite sample, and those get sent into the lab, and it gives you all of the different types of nutrients that you're holding in your leaf petioles, and it allows you to understand deficiencies you have there. So with all of those things together, you can really understand what your soil and your vines need, and that's where you can really, what's the word I'm looking for? Strategize with your cover crops and the different types of things that your soil may or may not need. And so really with what we've been doing so far is just doing a really great mix that kind of gives you the main things that your vines will need. So making sure it's getting that nitrogen fixing, deep tap rooted to allow some extra the water holding capacity, along with being able to get those nutrient cycles, different types of bugs and insects in there, really strong soil builders that'll add some organic matter to the soil.
Are you using the cover crop commercially at all, or just for, buying?
Yeah, so we plant cover crop right after harvest, essentially, and usually around November we'll go through and plant all of our cover crop, and we do it across all of our blocks in the vineyards. No, we haven't utilized alfalfa, but oh, got you. Yeah, no, we haven't done that, but some people have. We, as we've kind of transitioned into regenerative organic and have, really realized the increased labor of it all, we don't necessarily have the capacity to grow anything else at this moment. No, meaning like if we commercially grew alfalfa, would that increase our... So because we have a perennial crop, it's sort of a different type. If we had, say, annual crops or row crops, something like that, that definitely would. So in that sort of situation, you're looking at rotating your crops annually. You're adding more different types of crops. But because we have a perennial crop, it's kind of a different situation for the certification.
Lots of animals grazing. I see a lot of dung.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So we had 700 sheep that grazed across the property before bud break. So we had 700 Dorper sheep. They moved in and they took down all of the initial cover crop growth. So they did a really great job. That is part of our animal integration. And what they do is they add fertilizer to the soil. Their hooves kind of allow the soil to become aerated and incorporate that cover crop naturally. Of course, their urine adds fertilization. They do an amazing job. So that also allows us to maybe skip a pass of weed whacking or under the vine management. Some of the blocks that they got into still looks like almost like a golf lawn because it's still they did such a great job. This year, it was super rainy when they got here. It was actually dumping rain when they came and moved in. And so some of the blocks kind of saw some of that as far as the ground getting a little bit damaged from the extra compaction and the rain. But whenever it dried up, you could really see the difference in how well of an impact that they did make. It was really cool.
Are they in each section?
Yeah, we'll do a little exercise when we get out of one of our stops. But every block, they basically were in and out in 24 to 48 hours, depending on how large it is.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's called mob grazing. You hit the area hard, and they do as much impact as possible, and then you get them out, because you don't want to overgraze. You don't want to, you don't want them to have too much growth. You want the land to be able to bounce back. And so everything you see, if they were in there for too long, we would have like bare soil. And they moved out, I want to say the beginning of March.
So that's done before the bud happens and all that.
Exactly.
They would nibble on this as well.
Yeah. So exactly. So there's different breeds of sheep. There's we tried at one point to raise our own herd, and we quickly discovered that we are better at growing grapes than we are at growing sheep. It literally is so much more effort than you would think, because we definitely needed a full-time shepherd if we were going to continue. But with those, we used baby doll sheep, and those you can keep in the vineyard year round because they have short little legs and they can't get up on their hind legs and eat the buds. But the sheep that we had in here this season, they were Dorper sheep, and they could absolutely eat all the buds off the vines. So, I mean, in an ideal world, we would be able to have animals in the vineyard year round, but got to protect the crop. What's that?
Well, for some food crops, if you're going to apply any kind of like animal manure or have animal in your field, you have to have them out for 90 days before.
Yeah, depending on like the acreage and the amount of heads and things like that, I would assume. Oh, and before you harvest it. Yeah, so it's we do follow that rule, and we did before, but it's a different type of crop, so it wasn't in contact with the soil. So it wasn't as applicable. But now I know what you're talking about for sure. Before we carry on with more information, we have a nice little surprise. We have water and Gewürztraminer. That's right. Thank you, Casey. So this is our 2024 dry Gewürztraminer. Our 2023 Gewürztraminer was the first wine that we got to have our beautiful regenerative organic certified little button label on. So this is released now, yes. So that was very exciting. Do you want to pour it? Do you want me to? I can pour it. Okay.
Oh,
Everyone's got one.
everybody got one?
Yep, looks like it. Oh, I'll take it. Does everyone have one? You have one. Okay, great. All right, of course. So we are now down by Heresy Creek. And as I mentioned earlier, being Heresy Creek goes into Sonoma Creek watershed. And being on a watershed, not only does it come with regulatory impacts as far as permitting and such, but it also introduces the need for different practices to protect your watershed. And so, as you can see, everything...
That's why it's one missing.
Of course.
So you said this watershed belongs to who?
This is Heresy Creek, so it goes into Sonoma Creek watershed, which is the biggest watershed in Sonoma County. One of the biggest practices with protecting your watershed is erosion control. And so erosion control can come in many different forms. For us, it's cover cropping, keeping roots in the ground, especially during the rainy season. That also comes with diverting water. So you'll see like water bars, and as you on like the avenues, we cut divots into the ground to make sure that water is flowing into the blocks rather than down into the creek. It also comes with protecting our creek as far as any sort of inputs we use, and that was a reality for us even before we went to organic certification. So we were certified fish-friendly farming in 2007. It's like, I don't know. And that was really when the biggest effort and externally focused, audited sustainability practices began here. And that was all about protecting our watershed, protecting the fish in the watershed. It also means grass waterways. So we keep this grass year round. Nothing is able to just flow off into the watershed here. And it also means maintaining your riparian areas. So anytime we do annual walkthroughs with fish-friendly farming, and anything that is invasive, we then are required to look at it and try to get it out of here. So this provides so much wildlife habitat for us. It is really a blessing to be able to have so many different waterways throughout our vineyards, because it does allow all kinds of different wildlife to be introduced to the property. So before actually the railroad was built, this creek was how they got wines from the city to the winery here. No kidding. Wow. Yeah, fun fact. That is a fun fact. Right? Actually, Jeff told me that. Shout out, Jeff. So we collect rainwater in our stormwater pond at the top of the property. And so that is our stormwater pond, is what we call it. And it collects any sort of runoff that's coming off the hillside. Up there, you can really see Toll's Hill. So all of this wooded area, the wooded vegetation, that's Toll's Hill. That's our native land. And I mentioned earlier, we have more native land on our parcels than we do planted acreage. And so all the runoff from that hillside and everything is collected into our stormwater pond.
I assume you have no groundwater issues in this area?
We actually do. So we're part of the groundwater sustainability. We're in that area. So we, will eventually have to cut back our water use by at least 10% when the regulations go through. We are very fortunate to have our stormwater pond and to have the systems that we do to be able to recycle 100% of our winery wastewater. So at this time, I'm not particularly worried about it, but it's definitely an issue everywhere in California. And we're also, we're going to be cutting back irrigation more and more starting early to be able to kind of adapt our vines to that and increase their resiliency to decrease water use.
But you haven't had the issue of soil impaction like you've had in the Central Valley?
No. Yeah. And a lot of that is keeping the roots in the ground too, We do. Yeah. So here on this property, we have a wastewater pond system. It's two ponds in the system. The first one holds 1.5 million gallons, and the second one is a little below that. And it's treated with aeration and just exposure to the sun. And then once it hits a certain pH and DO, dissolved oxygen, then we're able to use it for irrigation, or we can pump it back up to our stormwater pond and irrigate right out of that pond and supplement our pond that way. We also have a way to supplement our irrigation pond with our groundwater, and that's always our, last ditch effort. If we need to supplement, we have the ability to do that, but we don't try to. The bugs and the blooms, everything. Didn't take my allergy medicine. Yeah, it's a beautiful oak tree. Yeah.
So you talked about using nitrogen fixing crops to add nutrients to the soil. Have you been able to reduce your kind of amendments over time as you've added?
Absolutely. So our biggest amendment that we use is cover cropping, compost, and fish emulsions. So if we have a nutrient deficient block, if cover crops don't make it happen, then we'll use fish emulsions for that. Otherwise, we haven't really needed to use anything else. We're really fortunate with our site and our soil that we haven't, needed to make any crazy efforts as far as that goes.
I confess I didn't read the article. I just saw the headline that said regenerative is not necessarily organic.
That's interesting. So for regenerative farming, the baseline, especially if you're going to be going a certified route and you're not using it as like a greenwashed term, the baseline absolutely is being organic certified. So it's I'm not gonna I'm not gonna talk bad about anyone or anything, but you know, if you're using regenerative to market something and you're not holding yourself accountable by farming organic, then you're simply lying. Yeah. Right. Let's just be real. Oh, I keep grabbing this mic. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, organic is absolutely the foundation of regenerative organic. And really the difference that you're looking at there for organic versus regenerative is with regenerative, you're focused on the whole interconnected system, a holistic view. Organic, you're really worried about materials at that point, what you can and can't apply. And then with regenerative, you're really getting into how every living being, including humans, animals, insects, are affecting your crop. And you kind of have a mindset shift where we consider ourselves land stewards. You know, it's not all about producing a crop. It's about supporting this interconnected holistic system and allowing everything to be successfully part of it, and bolstering different aspects to allow a different, so like it's like a systems thinking. It's like one thing, if it's out of whack, you put it on a pedestal and get it to where it needs to be because it eventually supports everything else.
So, how would you contrast it with biodynamic, other than you don't have to dance naked at the
Yeah, I think biodynamics and regenerative are very much intertwined. Really, the reason we chose the regenerative organic certification is because it's rooted in science. It's very much focused on, you know, science-based outcomes. We're monitoring, we're measuring everything. And biodynamics is really, you know, you're looking at the lunar cycles, you're kind of, it's really cool, burying, you know, cow horns and making compost tea. It's all awesome. I love it. And I would love to make compost tea here for sure. But yeah, biodynamics is a little bit more belief based, whereas regenerative is more rooted in science.
you're more focused on no tillage, I believe.
Yeah, I think both of them are real. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think biodynamics really, at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve the same thing. You know, is like we're all trying to focus on the ecosystem as a whole and respect our environment and work with it rather than against it. And it's certainly organic as well, biodynamics. How are we doing, Freya?
Excited about the grass.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, girl. Millie has, my 14-month-old has a birthday party, or else she would be here with you too.
Well, I don't want to preempt this if this is coming later, but can you talk about what kind of practices you use for pest and disease?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use integrated pest management, meaning it's much more systems thinking based than a typical program would be. So it's deeply focused on scouting. We're already scouting. We're getting scouting reports going. It's all about observation, really, with pest management and beneficials. We absolutely start utilizing beneficial insects. For example, we have a block out in La Paz that has a horrible mites issue, and we use predatory mites to offset that. And so the past 2 years, we've been building up our mites population to the predatory mites population. Hopefully it still has taken root and is sticking around this year. And then compared to the first year we saw the issue, and now it has improved significantly. And so we're really looking at it holistically. With that also comes with understanding how any sort of spray or other operations in your vineyard affects your pest population. So for example, mites thrive with dust. And so the biggest way to control powdery mildew in your vineyard is spraying a dust material. It's just a sulfur dust. It's organic, but it creates dust in your vineyard. And if that's not recognized, then you're literally feeding the population of mites to thrive. And so, for example, we had to shift away from a more dust-oriented spray program in this specific mites block, and we use all wettable sulfur type solution to treat powdery mildew, which is definitely the biggest issue that you find in vineyards, no matter how you're farming. And so, yeah, it's really looking at all of the things that you're doing. And so with dust, if you're doing tractor passes and you know, making everything dusty, if you have an avenue where cars drive through and you're kicking up dust, all of that's affecting your pest populations. And so it's really making sure that you're looking at the whole picture with everything that you're doing rather than just Band-Aid treating everything.
Do you do this sulfur preventatively? I mean, is that like a regular part of your...
Great question. Gosh, you guys are really good questions. I wouldn't have hit on all of these things without these questions. So thank you guys. So we have this amazing technology in our vineyard. It's from Berkeley scientists. It's called Root Applied Sciences, and they're spore traps. And so these spore traps, we passed one earlier and I didn't point it out. That's my bad. But if you drive through, you'll see like these like neon green signs sticking up in the vineyard. And it's basically a tunnel, and it captures any sort of spores that are entering the vineyard. And these spores are what cause powdery mildew on your vines. And so previously, before we started using this technology, this is now our fifth year doing it, we would spray for powdery mildew as a preventative in a 2-week interval. And now, with the data we're getting, we're able to stretch those intervals or skip entirely. So this is saving us resources, labor. It's reducing the compaction that we're having on our blocks as far as tractors go. And last year alone, we saved $30,000 from being able to reduce the amount of spray passes we had in the vineyard. So technology is definitely regenerative or sustainable agriculture's best friend, because the more data that you can gather, the better off and more informed decision you're able to make as far as your management practices go.
Wow.
Thanks. That I don't. Yeah, anyone want some water? Sure. Yeah, whatever you want to do. If you aren't finished, take it with you. Yeah, have some water. At the top of the hill. Top of the hill, we'll get you some more. Don't you worry. I'm pretty sure I have like a bug in my throat. Yeah, that's right. Protein.
For your cover crops,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to change what you're planting to worry about vectors for particular diseases? Or...
Yeah. So some types of cover crops, depending on how long you let it go, it can be, you know, a perfect breeding ground for different types of pests. So it's really about controlling it at the right amount of time. Oh, that's amazing. It's my mom's birthday, and we love ladybugs. So it's meant to... Oh, Freya, do you want to see a ladybug? Yeah. I'm going to steal a little water. Excuse me, gentlemen.
Oh, and there it went. Good one, Trey.
Clearly in this world.
Well, so I'm actually a PhD at UC Davis.
Oh, cool.
Since we moved out here, I've gotten really into the ag and thinking about that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to head on this way whenever you guys are ready. How are we on time? 11:30. Okay. We're good. The ladybugs show up, but they're also a great beneficial, yeah. So anytime I see ladybugs on the vines or anything, I'm like, yes, it's working. Absolutely.
Do the green bugs cause any harm that
They look like a ladybug, but they're green.
No, not for the vines. But yeah, but this amount of like growth that we have here, like the amount of bugs are plentiful. So this avenue that we're walking on here was actually, and Louise got to do this firsthand too. We moved this field that we're about to venture into. We moved Hereford steers between this field and another fallow field up there. So we've been working on regenerating our soil and our fallow blocks using animals. And right now, while they look just empty and sad, it's intentional. They're in a resting period. And all of our fallow blocks are also monitored annually with EOV and soil monitoring. So we'll get into there and get into all that fun stuff. And another fun fact too, Jim Bundschu, who is our 5th generation, he is like, how would you even describe Jim? He is incredible. He's Jeff Bundschu's father. He is the farmer of the family, and he brought back like all of the vineyards and the wines and everything. And he also like pivoted with the property as we've had different issues in the world of vines. And he used to grave Hereford steers, or Hereford cows too, out here. And so we brought him back. They have since, I don't mean to be insensitive, turned into hamburger patties. But they did an incredible job working our fallow fields along with our herds of sheep. Oh yeah. And so with cow dung comes, I'm blanking on the word, dung beetles. And so it's like 2 or 3 years ago, we were doing our annual monitoring. We're out in this field and we flipped over a cow dung patty and there was like 6 dung beetles in it. And we were like hooping and hollering, like so excited because the year before there were no dung beetles present. Yeah. And so doing these monitorings and observing and being able to measure everything every year, it's like so worth it because you see the improvements that you make and you get so excited about dung beetles. So I'm going to preface before we're going to actually cross this field. There are indentations from the cows. So there's a lot of uneven ground out in here. So just watch your step. So everything in here has all grown on its own, meaning we've not planted any ground cover here. And we've been working to build the functional groups of this ground cover, meaning we've transitioned it from annual grasses. We're moving them into perennial grasses. If we continue to let this land go, what you want to see is like a shrubland. And then eventually it transitions into trees. And it's all about building those functional groups and the soil networks underneath the ground. If you look down in here, it's pretty difficult to get to the soil. And so all of this mass and this growth, this is what we've been trying to do to build the soil. If we had a shovel in here and we went underneath, I wish I should have brought a shovel. Dang it. We're learning. The amount of bugs that would be unearthed and the white fungi, it would be amazing. And so all of these peas here, these weren't planted. These are just growing on their own. Woo! Careful. Yes, it would be amazing. Yes, now we're really off the beaten path. So, when we had animals out here at the beginning, sorry, I'll wait.
brought along red blotch?
No, I've not.
Heard about that recently.
Really?
We're starting to get away from lagoons.
Really?
They're not, I don't think it's for certain, but
Maybe they're thinking it's tide.
maybe.
Huh. So when we, oh gosh. Ah. Fallow. Yeah, so this was ripped out, I want to say like 10 years ago. And we started intentionally grooming it 5 years ago. And so that's when we did an initial planting of barley only. So 5 years ago, we planted barley everywhere. That's the only thing that was there here. And now you can see the many different species that are living in the ground. So we initially had sheep out here. We had cows out here first. And we would have to supplement their feed a lot. And so we'll do a little exercise. If you think about a standard sheep, say it's 100 pounds, and it's just a normal sheep, it's not young or it's not lactating or pregnant, they eat about 2 to 3% of their body weight. So that means they would eat about 2 to 3 pounds of ground cover per day. And so when we're looking at our vineyards, our fallow fields, and trying to integrate animals into it to help build the soil and build a different type of biodiversity on our cover, we really got to understand how much they need to eat, or else they're not going to be very functional. And so when you're looking at this, as I mentioned earlier, it's so hard to find the soil here. It's become lots of different species. I can see rye, I can see barley, I see peas. And so if I were to try to estimate how much 2 to 3 pounds would be, which I would say like a full trash bag of green mass like this would probably be like 1.5 pounds maybe. So if I wanted to measure that, but because of how dense it is, if we spread out in a circle or in a square, like how much do you think a sheep head would eat in one day? Freya, tell me. So it's actually with like the density of what this is, I would say when I first did this exercise a few years ago, we were spread out probably from me to Louise, because we could see the soil. It wasn't super dense. But now as the growth has developed, as we have more biodiversity, more density, I would probably estimate, and if I was in like a square of this size, I would estimate about that, right? That's a good point. So just doing exercises like that, and we get to see, the impact and how much, it's improving. It's pretty powerful and exciting. Yeah. Those are peas, yeah. Those were not planted. Yeah, that's right. Talk about commercial.
I think Casey said this is y'all are gonna plant here at some point.
Yeah, so the intentionality behind this field would eventually be to replant. So we've done different programs with holistic grazing. So we had large steers grazing in here. We had sheep. And while we were doing that, they were operating with free choice minerals, which was essentially like a pill box of like powders of different minerals. And they have the intuition to know what they're not getting from the ground cover. And so they would eat the minerals that they weren't getting from the ground cover and then peeing and pooping them back out to build up the soil health. And so they were in here. We had animals in here for 3 years in a row, and it's been resting now ever since and just developing as far as the ground cover goes. And from where we were to now, it's significant. I wish I had like side-by-side pictures. And so, yeah, they were, incorporating all of the nutrients that we didn't have here present. And the way it's developed since then has been pretty great. What do you think, Freya? I know, she's like falling in holes. Yeah.
You said you have a bunch of perennial grasses and things that
Yeah.
established here.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for how you're going to kind of deal with that when it comes time to plant vines to prevent
Not yet. That's a great question. You hit me with the good questions. That I don't have an answer to that one yet. I mean, we would have to kind of reset the soil a bit to be able to get vines in here. But what's really great and what a lot of other people do is they pump, different, not synthetic, but outsourced fertilization and everything into the soil to be able to prepare it for that next planting. But, we've taken the time and the efforts to do it naturally. And I think that would really benefit the future vines that will hopefully soon live here.
Maybe just in the industry in general, when people who are regenerative certified, I mean, I know there's only like 15 or something.
Mm-hmm.
When they want to establish a new block, do they typically start out at a lower level of certification and then transition it up after?
I would imagine that's what you would do. There are, again, for different scenarios, there's different exceptions. So if we were establishing a new block, that would be sort of like, okay, you're allowed to have exposed soil there because you have to get the vines to take. And when they're that young too, they really everything needs to be focused on the vine. But if it were me and I were going that way, I would definitely, the continual improvement. I would focus on probably the vines first, ensuring that we're adhering to all of the standards of the regenerative organic certification, but not necessarily focusing on being at that gold level. And really what the gold level for viticulture is all about is 100% ground cover. And then for farm worker fairness, it's a living wage plus 10% for all of your farm workers. And so in Sonoma, that's really hard to achieve, especially right now. We, no matter what in the regenerative organic certification, you have to be committed to achieving that and showing that you're working toward it every single year, similar to with your tillage action plan. So it has to be very transparent with your farm workers as well, that is the goal. And you have to explain, if you're not meeting that, you have to explain why. And so that is the ultimate goal for sure. And another great part of the certification that is probably one of my favorite parts is that farm worker pillar and the collaboration and the, like the passion that you start to see with your farm workers. It's all about having pure input from them, having, very face-to-face meetings. And it really creates a kind of pride, and it creates definitely a more energetic, more prideful, a more proud workforce than, an alternative. And I think that anyone that's working toward a goal or toward a program or with a program like this, that's what it's really all about, to make people happy, to keep your community happy, and keep your workforce happy. And if everyone's happy, you're winning, right? So that's that. Any other questions before we continue on in this field of... So I did my undergrad at Indiana, and then I got my master's degree at University of South Florida in global sustainability and climate change. And then I moved out here in 2020 and got into this field of viticulture and never left. And I don't intend to.
When did this start here?
When I started. So so Toll Merritt, who's the cousin of Jeff Bundschu, he at the time was our COO, and he and Jeff brought me on, and they had a vision of going organic, and they brought me on, and we did the dang thing. Yeah. It's been really fun and really rewarding. All right, watch your steps. We did, and then as we've moved and focused more on our regenerative organic, it's a lot of overlap as far as the requirements, but we couldn't really pair them. And so we haven't really focused on the land to market, but we were certified there at one point. So you seem to be very familiar with Savory and EOV and...
I'm doing my certification with them at the moment.
No way! That's awesome. Okay.
It's been a year and a half in the program.
That's amazing. Congrats. So yeah, Dylan Boken, I don't know if you've gotten to meet him yet. He's been our land monitor from the beginning. I really love them over there. They're very cool. That's awesome. Woo! He said, this is what you call Happy Easter. Ooh, this is a nice perennial rye. Love that. Hi.
Actually really good weather.
It is. Not too hot. I always prefer this weather.
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah, especially for we can oh my gosh, a bunch of birds just flew out of the top of that wind machine. Yeah, it's really, I feel like it adds to the majesticness of Rhine Farm too. All right, so we are about to head up to our last stop of our tour here. But first I wanted to point out this is about almost 1.5 acres of olive trees, which are also regenerative organic certified. The olive oil is sold in our tasting room. Jim Bundschu, it's kind of his passion project. He tends to all of the trees and he takes them all to Jacuzzi, to the olive mill there, and turns it into olive oil. So that's definitely part of our programming too. And it also adds a different aspect of biodiversity to the vineyard, as well as kind of like a hedgerow, more deep tap roots to be able to provide carbon sequestration and add to our carbon sink. So they're just as much a part of Rhine Farm as the vines. Yeah, so we have a huge row here. He started to establish some right there. They're not doing great at the moment. And then we have an olive grove over at AP and then up in the tasting room. I know, yeah. Is everyone all right? Made it through? I think you guys could provide some great comedic relief. Ooh, look at this massive mushroom. Couple of them. Good old fungi. That means we've got some good moisture in the soil. So as we head up this last hill here, this is our Heritage Pinot Noir block. These vines are not trellis. They're in more of a California sprawl. They're really special to our heritage program. And they're some of the oldest vines on the property. They're more of a terrace on the hillside too. So the higher up we get, kind of becomes more terraced. But these are really kind of, I like to think about heritage vines when I think about regenerative agriculture in the face of climate change. And as we're looking to sequester carbon, these trees as a perennial crop, or these vines, I'm sorry, as a perennial crop has been here for quite some time. And just the amount of carbon that they're able to take out of the air and kind of offset all of the efforts that we do in the vineyard, I think it's really special.
So how long can a vine, you told me the oldest here, but how long can they keep going?
And be productive? I think there's some vines that are like hundreds of years old. We have almost 100-year-old vines over at Abbot's Passage. And I know some of the oldest ones. Yeah, Zinfandel can get the oldest.
So why don't we have older vines on this property?
I think things, as they become less productive through disease or whatever it may be, or if it's like a varietal that's maybe not popular. That's what I was just saying, the taste. So things might not always have as much value that you expect them to at the end of the day. And it's interesting how quick, preferences change. And, one day you think, oh, this is a great idea. We should plant some Tempranillo and a bunch of it. And then the next thing you know, you have no one to sell it to. Right. Right, absolutely. It's very, very much, focused on strategy. And it's scary to kind of like go after planting that because it can go wrong, So.
How do you, your measurements, your sort of MRV sort of strategy, how do you guys work through that? There's so much of data that I'm sure you're collecting it. Do you guys use like specific software platforms? What do you guys do to manage the data?
Yeah, so really it's just, kind of mining through it, really. We get all of the lab data and it's all kept historically, and a lot of the action items that come from it, we have to strategize too, as far as, what's in the budget and what wines are most important, So at the end of the day, we do have different tiered blocks that we can put more efforts into than the others. So like if we have a premium block where we're getting our most special wine, we're going to be putting the most effort into that one. And so while we do get all kinds of amazing data, some of it might not be as useful as the other. But at the end of the day, what we want to continue to do is progress and be able to make sure that we're moving in a forward manner. And so a lot of it can be generalized as far as improving. Are we doing better? Yes or no? Do we need to kind of explore different management strategies? Yes or no? And it's really informing our management strategies at the end of the day and what blocks are better off than the other.
Are you finding that your customers or people in your sort of food ecosystem or your supply chain, are they starting to ask for some of the carbon data, some of the biodiversity data?
I think people are becoming more interested. This group is, I think, more interested than most, which is amazing. I love that. That's why we're doing this. But no, people are definitely wanting these things. And we're seeing that in trend data. Like, that's what Casey's all about. Like, as understanding what the people want and what we can give them. People might not be like, hey, show me how much organic matter is in this book because I'm really interested. But they want to know that we're farming with intentionality and we're farming for our planet, and we recognize climate change. We recognize that we can be operating as, you know, a positive contributor to our community. And I think that is what's most powerful, and that's what people care about. And that, you know, if that weren't the case, I don't think that I would have the privilege of being in this position. So it's really a testament to how much people are starting to care about our planet too. And that for me, I mean, people thought I was crazy when I was going for my master's degree, and now like sustainability is like, you know, it's huge. So I
For us, and I think what we've been seeing a little bit of an increase in from our customers, national customers, is not just sustaining, but generating.
Right.
Like, it's almost greenwashing the word sustainability these days. We use it in a generic term, but you need to be generative practices to
Right.
just let it drop down and it's sustainable.
Yeah, and I think regenerative agriculture is a factor of sustainability. I think sustainability, the way that I view it, is the umbrella. And to achieve sustainability, we're practicing regenerative organic agriculture to regenerate and to improve upon your ecosystem, to leave it better off. I think a lot of times with the way sustainability, the term is used, it gets very confused and muddled and greenwashed. And sustainability is the ultimate goal, and achieving that in agriculture is by practicing it regeneratively. So that's my 2 cents.
Common Ground up here?
The film?
Yeah.
I don't think we have showed it here.
When we got our regenerative organic certification, it was kind of going around the film tour circuit.
It's still, you know,
Yeah.
you can still get it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I saw that there were screenings and you kind of,
yeah.
No, we haven't yet.
That's a good idea. Maybe we should show that at the amphitheater sometime. Oh, here's a fun thing I can add to that. The SF Climate Week is happening next week, and on Earth Day, the 22nd, we're going to be doing a biochar burn demonstration here on Tuesday from 1 to 4. So if you're interested in learning about that.
You'll see more of me and the people at Biochar.
Yeah. That's on Tuesday from 1 to 4 on Earth Day. So we'll be down by the wastewater ponds, and we're partnering with Napa Char. They're a biochar company, and they're going to have their kiln here, and we're going to be making biochar on Tuesday.
I'm sorry, what is
Biochar is essentially, so it's you can make it in different ways, but the way that it's being made here, it's a kiln, and it's a low, slow burn that creates from woody material. Essentially, like you can make your old vines, turn them into biochar, and it is a really powerful soil amendment that not only already has carbon in it, but it adds an amazing amount of nutrients to your soil, and it lasts for years and years and years. So it's not like an annual thing you have to add. It really increases your water holding capacity. It's an incredible amendment. And it's really starting to become a thing in viticulture, which is super great. So yeah, we'll be in Napa Char biochar. Napa Char can tell you all about that too if you want to come by. But it's a solid regenerative practice that is really great for the soil. All right, guys.